Day 7 Money Series. So today we're going to be talking about debt. Um, Debt is nowadays nearly unavailable. Unavoidable because of how many things we are told we need to have to survive, and some of the ridiculous requirements um, that our lifestyles now want from us. And it does take a lot of self control to remind yourself there are things I need and there are things I want. But we're talking about the mistakes we've already made and how we're going to fix those mistakes. So you can't fix debt without savings. I know people say, well, fix your debt and then start saving. No, no, not me. I say keep your savings and also deal with your debt and keep them separate and far from each other because they're both very important. Sorry, savings are very important, and you didn't get in a second, you're not going to get out of it in a second. So brace yourself that it's going to take a while. What you have to do is remember we talked about money being emotional. This is where we make our greatest mistakes, and so we often get ourselves into that. But we're not discussing how we got into it today. We are discussing how we're going to get out of it. We're going to get out of it by being dedicated and focused. I could stop right there. I could stop right there, and it would be all I need to say. However, we know this is not the case. All right, so I'm going to tell you about the two methods. There is the avalanche and the snowball effect. The avalanche is I take my biggest debt with my biggest interest and I work on that. And then simultaneously deal with the others by fractioning out the money into little pools. Some people love the avalanche effect because they think they'll save on interest. Me, I want to cut down the time I do it in, so I'm going to use the snowball effect. One is not necessarily faster than the other. The difference is because money is emotional, debt is emotional. So as a result, every time I clear debt, I feel better about myself, and then I want to continue, and then I want to get excited and push it along. So I'm pushing it. So I don't feel defeated because another month has gone and I still owe this body here. So with the snowball effect, we take the smallest debts and we clear off the smallest debts. Clear. Tick. But we have a set amount of our account. We talked about this amount being 40% maximum. The reason it's maximum is overpaying debt will send you back into debt. I cannot say this enough, so let me say it again. Overpaying debt will send you back into debt. If you do not want to go back into debt, do not overpay. Maintain never more than 40% of your total income. We already agreed income is only the piece that comes home, not the agreement of what the boss promised to pay you. When taxes out of it, when this out of it, the next out of it, that come home to you is the debt. So we're talking about yes, I know what your boss said is you make this amount, but by the time you get home, you only get that amount. That amount that come home is what we're talking about, and we're taking 40% of that to clear debt, but we are consistent with it. So money orders at the you can have the bank direct transfer payments to places if you want. I do not do that because I switch up and I pay more, and sometimes I pay less, and sometimes depending on how my difficulty is. Now you could take your whole debt amount, that 40%, and divide it up amongst your loans, giving each a portion. And when you clear the smallest, you then divvy up the remainder again. So the first time it's out of 10. 10, the amount of money you have divided into 10. But you know, some agencies you've already committed to. So you promised them you were going to pay them, and you let them direct deposit from your account, which you probably might need to stop doing. Because that doesn't allow you then wiggling space. But with those, for example, you might have to keep those and do the remaining debts. Now, there are other debts you might have, such as hire purchase, which we talked about how scary hire purchase is. It might be just other small debts from people, family, friends, whatever. As you clear those and get rid of those tonight and feel good about yourself, so celebrate a little bit. Don't go wild. You know, give yourself a little gift, a little token on the back. Maybe whatever left back and change it, buy yourself something nice with, or you put it to the debt and keep it moving faster because you're motivated now. Right. So for every time you clear it, rather than it being divided by, let's say it was divided by 10, then 9, then 8, you could also just pay the top ones at the rate that they need to be paid at, and then the small ones divvy up and give everybody a small portion of money so that they know their money is coming. But once you've cleared it, then you just add all to different. And so, for example, if your portion for a debt is bigger than your biggest debt, then you start dumping all of it into that account and moving that debt down further. Or you can take some of that debt out and fraction it back to some of your savings, increasing your savings by 20%, depending on if that last debt is a mortgage. Now, some people argue there's no need to rush a mortgage. It's 30 years. There's going to come a time when it's ridiculously low for you to pay. Like when it first came out, it was hard. But now, based on what you made, it's cake. Or based on what you've been saving, ain't a big thing. Also, there are debts like credit card debts. Now, credit card has to be a separate subject, which is the next talk, because credit cards are a little more complicated. So when it comes to credit card debt, we have to respond to it slightly differently, especially if you've run over the original debt balance, credit balance you had. You don't have to approach that completely different. If this debt is your debit card, we should approach it with the same. We should treat that debt the same way we treat big companies' debts, and also clear that or get it back to the entitled amount we said we were going to save. So if we said we were going to have this amount as security and you've gone under your own security, then you should be equally eager to bring it back up. Now, these are numerous suggestions, and each person has an individual situation. So you're going to tweak anything. But let me just tell you this. You know more about your debt and what needs to be done. And if you're checking in with prayer, and so, you are probably your best financial manager. It isn't that what I know will give you suggestions and will help you. But with every decision, I like to do my own little prayer first and ask the Lord, where to put this extra, where to put this focus. What you think need to sort out now? Who do I clear off? How do I handle this? And let him tell you. Tomorrow we're going to discuss credit card debt, because credit card debt is so much more complicated, and we get it mixed up all the time, and it's crushing us. So we are letting money leak out of our accounts without realizing, based on credit card, bad payment of credit cards and bank charges. So we can discuss all of that tomorrow. But today, think about how you are going to approach your debt, and approach it with a level of seriousness. Like, for example, I'm going to recommend keep the amount you are going to pay back consistent and the same. So you know, regardless of what, this is how much I'm spending towards my debt. And if some months you're able to pay more, then praise the Lord, keep paying that more. If some months you can pay forward on some things, pay forward on it. Get ahead of it. Okay? Now, have an absolutely wonderful day. And if you need any help, remember I consult in this, so feel free to check in with me, and I will gladly explain further or make suggestions for your personal issue and how to get you specifically out of debt. Now, I've told you before, these are important subjects to move us as a people forward. We need to pass around these videos. We need to be having these difficult conversations. We need to be actually learning about money so we are stronger as a people dealing with money. And more of us have. The more of us have, the more of us we can bring along. Okay? Have an amazing day.